Good evening and hello. My name is Helen Phillips. I'm the Chair of the Trust and I'm going to be joined this evening by our Chief Executive Angie Smithson and also by our Lead Governor Margaret Rochelle. Lauren and Stephanie will be signing this evening's proceedings for us too, so thank you and a welcome to them. This is the second virtual annual members meeting. And I know we've had a little hiatus in getting online this evening, so thank you for bearing with us whilst we sorted out the technical difficulties, but we're hoping that there will be no more. And you may be wondering why we're having a second virtual AGM when restrictions have been lifted, but as a healthcare provider, we still have a number of COVID-19 safety precautions in place on our sites, so the digital format seemed best. And frankly, it's also in response to the really great feedback we got about this format last year and record levels of attendance. We want to make it as interactive as possible though, and we know there are some constraints on that when it's virtual, but we've got 3 ways that you can get in contact with us tonight. You can text us, you can send us an email, or you can do it on our Twitter account. The details are all on the screen there, and I'm just going to give you a moment to have a look. So the text is 07717 681 065. The email is Chesterfield Royal Hospital Annual Members Meeting, i.e. CRHAMM at nhs.net, or it's hashtag CRHAMM 2021. So those contact details are there for you, and as thoughts arise to you, comments you want to make, suggestions or any questions that you want to put to us as the evening progresses, please do keep them coming and there will be an opportunity for us to do just that. So we'll be reflecting on the past year. It's been another challenging year, as you can imagine, particularly with the second wave of the virus in both November and then in March. So in addition to hearing from our Chief Exec, you'll be seeing video clips of colleagues from across the Trust delivering services both in the organisation and in partnership with other service providers, NHS providers, local authority partners and voluntary service providers all across Derbyshire. And I hope you will enjoy those clips as much as I have. For those of you who joined us last year, you might recall me saying that I was humbled and inspired in equal measure by the response of both our colleagues and the wider community in the eye of the COVID-19 storm. Well, this year, the resilience of colleagues has been outstanding, not only to keep services running, but to simultaneously chart a path to the full recovery of all our services. And that, coupled with the determination to innovate and secure new and better services for the future, notably commencing work in the past week on a new £24 million state-of-the-art A&E department, has been, well, equally humbling and inspiring as the previous 12 months. So my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of my colleagues at the Trust. And of course, a huge thank you to you at home or wherever you are this evening joining us. Your continued interest and support in our work is very much appreciated. So you're going to hear more about our work now from Angie.
Thank you, Helen, and good evening, everyone. As Chief Executive, I'm really proud this evening to be able to share with you, along with some of my colleagues on screen, some of the highlights from what has been a most challenging year, and also to look ahead at what the future holds. During 2021, we were very proud to launch our new 5-year strategy, Together as One. Thank you to all our people, patients and partners who provided nearly 1,500 comments and 500 ideas that contributed to our final mission, vision, priorities and values. It's aligned with the NHS long-term plan and it's part of Joined Up Care Derbyshire's plan. And it's the most collaborative and comprehensively engaging strategy that we've created. It also uses learning we've taken from the pandemic and continues to have the aim of providing exceptional care for all our patients at the heart of it. Providing that care for our patients in the past year has been done in the context not only of a pandemic, but significant demand on all our services, which we continue to see rise. This has affected our ability to meet some of the national waiting time standards for patients, and we face, along with the whole of the NHS, a challenging time to ensure we see all our patients in primary care, in emergency settings, and all of those on our elective waiting lists in a timely way. We're working hard across Derbyshire to review all our patients who are on waiting lists and to prioritise everyone in order of clinical need. Despite the challenges, our friends and family test results throughout the year continue to show that we are maintaining high levels of satisfaction, with some areas still posting a 99% recommendation score. We are continuing to progress digital routes to receiving real-time patient feedback, and our second video, which you'll see shortly, gives more information on this from our Chief Nurse, Krishna Kalyampur, and Quality Delivery Manager, Julie Clift. Support for our staff has continued to come in through social media comments, particularly when highlighting new ways of working and how our people have supported each other to continue to provide the care our patients need. We've also enjoyed some wonderful media coverage, including an unprecedented piece about our ITU team that was split into 2 6-minute features over 2 nights on ITV Central and Calendar. And our research team was featured on national BBC and ITV News. That shows how the level of patient care has transcended our own channels of communication into more traditional media and is a real credit to the work of all our teams over the past year. Our staff have had to change the way they support their patients during the pandemic. For example, in maternity, where entire birth plans are built around mums and their partners, this became a cause of anxiety. And our first video, featuring members of our maternity and midwifery team, shows how compassion, support, and empathy are so essential to the care we give.
Hello, my name's Julie Mycock and I'm Deputy Head of Nursing and Midwifery. During the pandemic, we've maintained all areas of our maternity services. The antenatal period for women has been particularly challenging. It was a very anxious time for women and for partners, so we did provide a lot of additional information and support. All of the partners and the women have been tested on admission when they come in labour. All partners, all women are tested when they come in for induction of labour and obviously before they come in for any caesarean sections.
I am Mary and I'm a midwife at Chesterfield Royal Hospital. We went from seeing women and up to 2 birth partners to seeing women initially on their own, having masks on, having the full PPE on. So it was an unknown time for all.
Hello, my name's Nicole. I'm one of the midwives here at Chesterfield Royal Hospital. So in the times of COVID, I remember looking after a lady up on Trinity Ward, which is our postnatal ward. The lady was quite anxious. She was going to be having an elective section the next day. I was due to be on shift but not on the birth centre instead of doing electives, but I knew how anxious she was, so I'd asked if I could do the elective sections and look after her. So I took her to theatre, looked after her, brought her back here to the birth centre. She was quite scared and anxious, understandably, because her partner couldn't come and she was COVID positive. So I fetched her back to the birth centre, stayed in the room with the lady and looked after her, did her notes and everything in the room so that she wasn't on her own with the baby.
So midwives would be with the women as much as possible, supporting them throughout labour, encouraging them to keep in contact with their partners. I was there at some points when they were able to do FaceTime or video call so they could, throughout labour, have that contact with their partner.
I think continuity of care is a big thing in midwifery, and it really helps develop the relationship with the woman and the family that you're looking after. And I think sometimes it's just about being sat by them and being like a friend almost that they can speak to if they've got any worries or anything. And it was just nice to be able to have that time to just sit down and be with women, because that's what a midwife is all about.
The support and the feedback that we have had during this pandemic from many of our women and families has really shown that we have maintained the quality and the high standards of care that we aspire to. So we're really thankful for the women and how they have actually helped and supported the staff in providing that care in very difficult circumstances.
Hello, my name is Krishna Kalyampur. I'm the Chief Nurse here at Chesterfield Royal Hospital. As a learning organisation, it's really important that we understand the views of our patients and carers. And once we understand what some of the issues are, whether that be positive or areas that we can improve on, we can then put plans in place to try and move forward with those to improve further. And we want to be outstanding as an organisation.
My name's Julie Clift, I'm Quality Delivery Manager at the Royal. There are various ways that patients and families can feed back to us at the Trust. We have the Friends and Family test. We also have SMSing, so if somebody comes in as an outpatient or an inpatient, we ask for their feedback. We also have the Patient Advice and Liaison service, where people can phone in, leave an answer phone message or pick up their phone message. They can email us, and we also have the PALS office in main reception where people can come in and talk to us.
I think it's really important that if you've gone to the trouble to raise areas of concern or to tell us where we can really improve, I think it's absolutely our duty to be able to respond really timely. And one of the criticisms that we would get as an organisation is that time lag between raising concerns and being able to do something about it is far too long.
Real-time patient feedback is really valuable to the Trust. We can find out straight away how our patients are feeling. If that's positive, we can feed that back to the staff, which is a really important message. If it's something that we can do better or something we can help with, then we can deal with that at the time.
Here at Chesterfield, we really do value the feedback that we get from our patients and carers. We want to do a fantastic job of really caring for everybody, and that is understanding what people's needs are. We are learning all the time, and it's important that we work in partnership. So a lot of the things that we want to do are in co-production with certain patient groups, with the feedback, and make sure that what we think is right is actually really what matters to patients, and we can only do that listening to patients.
Hello, my name.
It's true what they say, that your greatest asset is your people, and our colleagues over this past year have been magnificent. Our 4,200 staff have pulled together in exceptional circumstances to deliver quality care across our hospital, our community and our GP surgeries throughout the pandemic. It's not always been easy, and we've not always got it right, but the effort and support we've given each other has seen us provide the best possible care we can. Like the rest of the NHS, demand for our services has reached unprecedented levels at times, and our staff haven't been immune from the COVID-related isolation and sickness that has affected everyone. This means that we have regularly had to face these service challenges with staff absences, colleagues working in different areas and learning new skills. At the same time as thanking our staff for their commitment and flexibility, our board role is to make sure all our people have an exceptional place to work. We've continued to progress work to support this, and last October our team won the Excellence in Employee Engagement Award at the Healthcare People Management Awards. Our staff survey results were above average in 9 out of the 10 themes, with a 55% response rate, quite an achievement in the middle of a pandemic. We posted the same or improved scores in all but one of the themes compared to the 2019 survey, showing we've come a long way in a short space of time and are continuing to head in the right direction. Our teams have been recognised nationally. For example, our haematology nursing team were nominated for a Patient Experience Network Award and are in with a chance of winning it for the 2nd year running. And a fantastic innovation to give patients more control over their outpatient appointments, Patient Hub, received a Healthcare IT Award, and there's more on that one later. There's also much more in our annual report, including how health and well-being for our people continues to be embedded in our culture and how we are incorporating this into our legacy of the pandemic. Patients, staff and visitors wearing face masks has become an enduring image of the pandemic, something we still insist upon as health providers. And we'd like to share an example of how one of our own people has led an innovation to improve patient experience in a practical way. Coming into hospital can be an anxious time, amplified by the communication barriers that a face mask can impose. One of our consultants, Dr. David Sandler, developed a simple yet ingenious idea, featured on BBC Look North, that changed the way we were able to put our patients at ease.
Hello, my name is Dr. David Sandler, and I look like this when I'm not wearing a mask. We have to wear masks at work at the moment, and that's why I introduced this photo badge for people's attention. I found that patients, when they were looking at me, or any health professional in personal protective equipment, and I felt that I wanted patients to know who they were talking to. So I have devised a photograph of myself which I wore on top of my uniform. Now most of us, as we go around the hospital, do carry a badge of ourselves which looks like this. It's very small and I don't think it really shows people what we look like. As I walked around the hospital, I found people would stop me and say what a good idea this was. So I challenged Sarah Ward, Deputy Chief Nurse, and the Communications Department to help me make this. So they were able to create a template for the badge, freely available to staff, and all the staff had to do was to download and copy a photograph of themselves into the badge, print it out, and then they were supplied with these wallets that can be cleaned and wiped between patients. And we started wearing this. We adopted the hashtag, and I looked like this. And with the help of social media on Facebook, Twitter, things like that, we were able to spread the word, and it was taken up by a lot of other hospitals and health areas. I then started producing badges and sending them out in letters to celebrities. And I've been extremely pleased to receive replies from Kensington Palace, from Clarence House, from Bagshot Park, and from Buckingham Palace, from the royal family members who have actually praised us for the idea. They've wished the health service and all the people who work at Chesterfield Royal Hospital well, and hoped that the project would continue and that perhaps it would spread to other places.
Just a reminder that you can ask us a question by texting us on 07717 681065, emailing us at the address you can see there below, or via Twitter using the hashtag CRHAMM2021, and we'll do our best to answer them towards the end of this evening. We are part of the Derbyshire-wide health and care system and have continued to work more and more closely with primary care, neighbouring hospitals, voluntary groups, local councils and health partners. As an anchor institution in Derbyshire, we are using our influence to encourage and support our communities by using local providers where possible, standardising employment to recruit from our own local population, and supporting the promotion of a healthy lifestyle. We've also committed to a new green plan that was launched earlier this year, a 3-year plan aiming to reduce greenhouse emissions. We have a number of initiatives, including those designed to encourage more sustainable methods of transport, electric car charging points, and an environmental forum that has helped to improve waste management by introducing more recycling points across the Trust. The pandemic has impacted on the way our communities support us, and we're really pleased to now have our volunteers back with us. They give their own free time to complement the services we offer and enhance patient experience. Many of our volunteers were shielding over the past year, and some of our volunteer-run services, including welcoming patients and visitors into the Trust and the incredibly popular Royal Rider, had to be suspended. It's a joy to see them back, and I'd like to thank them for everything that they do. Our services extend into our communities with GP and primary care services, midwifery, children's services, therapy services and more, all at community bases and with those staff visiting homes across North Derbyshire. All of these have been affected by the pandemic, and we've had to find more and more innovative ways of being able to see patients safely in their own homes or in the community. GP services have remained open to patients in different ways, whether that still be in person, over the phone or via a video consultation. They have also been central to the delivery of the ambitious COVID-19 vaccination programme. This next video outlines the challenges our Royal Primary Care colleagues have faced at the same time as being part of delivering such a successful vaccination programme in Derbyshire.
My name is Joanne Lacey. I'm Managing Director of Royal Primary Care. Royal Primary Care and all primary care has been open throughout the whole of this pandemic. So patients have been able to contact us from a variety of ways, through using the telephone system, through using the Royal Primary Care app. The app has been developed by our own GPs, and what we wanted to do was ensure that patients had lots of advice and information about when to use services and when not to, and where to get some of that advice around their condition from. We developed a web form, and that web form can also be found on our website, so that they can contact us directly with whatever concern they've got, and then we will contact them back via our receptionist to advise what type of appointment they should have. All of our appointments are based on clinical demand. So if it is an urgent appointment and they absolutely need to be seen today, they will be. And that can be either face-to-face or through video consultation or through a telephone consultation. But it will be based on clinical need.
My name is Dr. Peter Scriven. I'm Divisional Director and GP at Royal Primary Care. Well, then there was the COVID vaccination programme, the biggest vaccination programme that anybody can recall having to deliver, the bulk of which was delivered through primary care. We played a really active role in delivering that vaccination programme. For example, we had 6 clinics at our Inkersall site, not just for our patients, but for the people of Brimington, Staveley and Inkersall. And assisted by staff and colleagues from the Brimington surgeries, we delivered over 1,000 vaccines a day on each of those 6 days to the people in that area of Chesterfield. It was a really significant contribution to the success of the vaccination programme. And all the while we did that, we provided a near normal, or as near normal as we could under the circumstances, primary care service.
The last 18 months have been challenging, everybody realises that, but from my staff's perspective, it's been incredibly difficult. They have worked phenomenally hard, they've worked phenomenal hours, they've not taken the time out for themselves, their health and well-being, but they've done that out of dedication and care for their patients, and they'll do it over and over again if needed.
All our staff have worked incredibly hard to ensure that our resources, whether that be people, medicines, kit or PPE, are available when and where needed through an ever-changing picture, and to ensure that we use everything as efficiently as possible. In our annual accounts, you'll see that despite the challenges of the pandemic and the operational pressures in the last financial year, we managed to deliver a 1.5 million surplus, which is an incredible achievement. At the same time, we've continued to invest in our own estate, in new equipment and technologies, even adapting our existing buildings and spaces for different or multiple uses, enabling us to react quickly to the ever-changing demands on our service. For example, as demand for intensive care of our COVID-19 patients began to increase, some of our inpatient ward areas were adapted for use to care for critically ill patients. At the same time, as we look to the future, we're continuing to work on plans for a new critical care unit to provide a better environment for patients and staff in one place. Our DSFS colleagues have worked wonders in ensuring we have the equipment, resources and environment to support our care delivery over that past year. They've helped us to create a safe place for patients, staff and visitors, for example with the provision of PPE, social distancing signage and extra hand sanitisers across the Trust, and supported us to work in different ways with investment and development of our IT infrastructure and kit. Here's our DSFS Managing Director, Dennis Kentropp, to explain more about how they've achieved this and what it means to work in partnership.
My name is Dennis Kentropp. I'm the Managing Director for DSFS. The whole pandemic period has been a challenge say the least. But we don't talk about recovery and restoration really, because in our case, the services have never been stood down. If anything, it's been stepped up, because we had additional demands for cleaning, we have had additional portering demands, we had estate demands. Different services had different demands. If you think about clinical engineering with all the ventilators and pumps that had to be arranged, the PPE had to be arranged. So basically we haven't had any recovery or restoration, but just a stepping up or stepping across of our services. COVID is not done yet, is it? I mean, what is the new normal look like? And I think that is really important to try to grasp, but very difficult at the same time. But in terms of what will stay, I think, is working from home. I think the work-life balance, people found it very useful. I think the effectiveness has increased, communication has been increased as well. So I think that will stay. What I also would like to mention is that over that period of time, we have really worked together well with the trust. You know, we really had a good working relationship. We had the common purpose, and it showed. We were really there for one another. We supported one another, and I think that has been tremendous as well. So thumbs up to that, and I would say brilliant foundation of moving forward as well.
As a trust, we encourage our people to use their expertise to innovate and develop ideas to improve our services. Our Royal Academy of Improvement supports the training, development and education of our staff, and this has resulted in some tremendous work. The new section of our annual report includes a host of stories that illustrate how staff have worked hard to provide an even better experience for our patients. It could be running with a single simple idea, such as the letters of love, that enable patients to keep in touch with their relatives whilst visiting was suspended. Or the development of apps, for example in the NGS Macmillan unit, where patient information has been digitised and information videos created to explain the signs and symptoms of cancer and what to do if patients have a related concern. It meant that unnecessary journeys into hospital were minimised for those shielding, while still providing access to essential information. Some improvements enabled patients to take more control of their own condition. The breast care team launched a self-management approach for patients that helped to reduce anxiety and minimise their need to come into hospital. The imaging team developed a straight-to-CT scan service, reducing the time it takes between having a chest X-ray and CT scan from up to 14 days to a same-day service, helping to improve lung cancer diagnosis. And we've made inpatient service improvements, including the development of SDEC, same-day emergency care services, to reduce the time that patients have to be in hospital for their treatment. The next video features improvements we've made to our outpatient system that, when fully developed, will give patients more control over their appointments and help us to reduce did not attend rates.
Hello, my name is Amy Rowland and I'm the Application Deployment Specialist for Patient Hub. So Patient Hub is an online patient portal for patients to access all appointment information in one place. So this links in with our patient administration system, Medway. So when an appointment's created on Medway, this will then trigger a text message to the patient's mobile number with a link through to Patient Hub where they can access the platform. The platform's secure because it sends a one-time use authentication code through to the patient's mobile, and this will be entered onto the platform which will log them securely in. So not only is it an online patient portal with 24/7 access to the platform, it also doubles up as a text reminder service which will send a notification 7 days and 2 days in advance of the patient's appointment. So this will help fill in empty slots around the trust for people that cannot make appointments anymore, and patients can also link it in with their phone in their calendar so they've got a reminder on there as well. Patients will have access via their mobile device to their appointment letters and information at any time, so they feel more in control. We introduced the platform last year and we're rolling it out in stages at the minute. So we're currently live with limited functionality where the patient can only accept their appointment, but once we're fully rolled out, they'll have the ability to rebook or cancel just by the click of a button. The patient uptake since going live is 70% for the 54 Medway outpatient specialties that we're currently live with. So this speaks for itself in that patients want to use the system. The system is financially beneficial to the Trust as well, obviously with the reduced printed and posted letters, and also the environmental savings around that as well. It's keeping with the times, moving towards digital healthcare, and hopefully it'll be a great success for the Trust.
Just a reminder again that we'll be answering your questions shortly, and I can see them coming in thick and fast out the corner of my eye. But if you want to drop us a line, please text us on the number below, the email, or send us a message on Twitter. The NHS faces a huge challenge as we look into what will be a very difficult winter period, the continued delivery of vaccination programmes, and the work to reduce waiting times for patients, especially the backlog of care for appointments and procedures. Throughout the pandemic, many of our theatre staff have been supporting the intensive care of our most poorly patients, which resulted in the number of planned operations being reduced. Our theatres are now operating much closer to normal, and we're treating some of those patients needing planned surgery, but it will take us time to recover. At the same time, recent months have felt to most of us like a winter, with the demands on all services continuing to increase, higher levels of staff absence at times, and at a period when we have made sure we have supported our staff to take their much needed leave and rest. And we will continue to prioritise looking after our people. This week we started the Flu Vaccination Program, and last year more than 85% of our staff had their flu jab, one of the highest NHS Trust vaccination rates in England. We look forward to achieving a high uptake again this year to help protect our people, our services and our patients. As we prepare for winter, we're working very closely with our system partners in developing videos, press releases and social media posts to point people in the right direction for the most appropriate treatment in as timely a way as possible. This leads very nicely into our final video of the evening and our exciting developments in how we plan to deliver emergency care. Work has started on the £24 million Urgent and Emergency Care Department, a major project that has been in the planning stages for a few years. The finished unit will include dedicated treatment areas for urgent care, major injuries and children, with support from mental health, social care, therapies, pharmacy, diagnostic imaging teams, etc., to provide the best possible service for our population. Designed in collaboration with our clinical teams and Joined Up Care Derbyshire partners, this final video uses digital images to give you an inside look into what this new unit will be like, what will be inside, and how it will change the way we deliver urgent and emergency care. It will be ready to open to patients by summer 2023, and we're delighted to introduce it to you now.
Your new Urgent and Emergency Care Department. To help keep up with the growing demand on our emergency services, Chesterfield Royal Hospital is investing £24 million to build a new Urgent and Emergency Care Department on our site. As a trust, we provide care and treatment to a population of more than 400,000 people across North Derbyshire, seeing upwards of 90,000 patients in our emergency department per year, a figure that is rising annually. Linking up with our health partners across the region, we're committed to ensuring that we do our very best to encourage these patients to access the right services at the right place at the right time. This building will help us to do that more effectively. Built on an existing staff car park with spaces relocated elsewhere in the Trust, it's been designed with support and input from our clinical teams and our DSFS partners. The department will have a spacious reception area here, where patients can be streamed to the appropriate point of care with dedicated separate areas for minor injuries and urgent treatment, paediatric patients, a dedicated area for patients arriving by ambulance, those presenting with major injuries and emergencies, and an area for resus. Patients will ring NHS 111 first to ensure they're coming to the right place for the most appropriate treatment. They will book patients' dedicated time slots to minimise waiting times. One of our receptionists will then take our patients' details and direct them to the waiting area. Patients who have not contacted NHS 111 will be assessed in our streaming area to determine the most appropriate service based on clinical need, be it in our urgent treatment centre, pharmacy, or even alternative NHS services outside of the Trust. If you bring a child in for treatment, you will immediately be sent through to our dedicated paediatric area. Reducing anxiety in our younger patients is important to us, so we will create a more relaxing environment away from adult areas that can feel noisy and overwhelming for children. Our paediatric area will look and feel different to the rest of the department, with a non-clinical feel, including decoration and artwork that children will find engaging and distracting. Paediatrics will also contain a wait and play area, themed consulting rooms with plenty of space for children and parents, and a dedicated room for child and adolescent mental health support. Adults may be streamed to our urgent treatment centre, which will be for illness and injuries not considered to be an emergency. Again, the design has factored in plenty of room for you to wait in comfort, with spacious treatment areas to ensure suitable access for everyone. This area is essential to our plans by helping us to divert patients with less serious conditions away from our more critical services, saving patients time and enabling our critical teams to focus on emergencies. Those with more serious conditions will be streamed to majors. This area is larger with more cubicles to help cope with higher demand, including some specialist areas for gynecology and bariatric patients. Our nursing station is right in the middle, allowing them line of sight throughout the department to improve communication between our staff and patients, and also security. It's situated to the right of the building as you enter, perfectly placed for our ambulance patients who will come in through the rear of the building and next to our resus bays for faster access. We have also built and designed the department to provide mental health support, a close proximity to therapy services and diagnostic imaging, and a clear and quick route back to the main building for patients who need to be admitted. We are incredibly proud to be able to introduce this new facility to you, created with involvement from our Joined Up Care Derbyshire partners and due to open in late spring to early summer 2023. By providing more space, more capacity and the ability to extend further, this building will protect our emergency and urgent care services for many years to come.
Hearing about our work, I hope you've enjoyed those slides and hearing about our work as much as I have. But arguably this next section is the most important part of this evening because it's our chance to answer your questions. So keep them coming, but we have a great range of questions already. So we're going to get started on some of those. The first one actually picks up on the theme, Angie, from the last video clip, probably prompted by people seeing it. And it's a very sensible, obvious question, really, when you think about it. And it's, what is the old A&E going to be used for? Are there any thoughts about that yet?
Lots of thoughts and lots of discussion around options. No firmed up plans as yet, but we are looking at, for example, can we use that space for our critical care expansion that we need to deliver a more modern critical care unit? Or can we bring all of our emergency and assessment areas to the front of the hospital? So that reference I made to same-day emergency care, where we deliver those assessment and facility areas, having that all together at the front door is another option. I'm sure there's plenty more that my staff out there and teams have thought of, but no final plans just yet.
Yes, very good. Well, if you've got ideas, particularly people who might be joining us tonight who are service users and have been patients at the Trust, because often the best ideas come from people who've had first-hand experience. So tonight's not your only opportunity to share those views with us. The second question's a really important one, Angie. It's about restoration and recovery of services. We all know that there are backlogs of work, and if you read the newspapers, you could be quite alarmed with the size of waiting lists in some areas and what have you. Now, we know that as a board, relatively speaking, we're doing quite well in this regard. But I think if you could maybe explain a little of where we're up to and what we're anticipating playing out over the next 12 months, that will be obviously much appreciated.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, and to give people a flavour of where we are now compared to where we were pre-pandemic, one of the indicators we use around waiting lists is having no patients over 52 weeks and aiming to treat everyone within 18 weeks. And pre-pandemic, we had no patients waiting over 52 weeks, and in most of our specialties, we're consistently achieving that 18 weeks for treatment. Unfortunately, given the complete almost stop to some of the planned surgery in the immediate pandemic era, means we've drifted now to having a number of patients over 52 weeks and even some patients now over 104 weeks. Small numbers, I'm pleased to say, at Chesterfield Royal compared to others, but even so, as a patient, waiting any longer than you really have to is really hard. As I touched on earlier, we have increased the level of activity that we've been doing recently. We've continued to do operations right the way through the pandemic, but we've prioritised those most in urgent need of clinical care. And our clinicians work regularly to review their waiting lists and talk with patients, particularly those that have waited longest, to make sure we are continuing to prioritise appropriately. I would just say to all patients, we haven't forgotten you. We are continually reviewing those lists, and if you're concerned at all, then do contact us and we'll be back in touch as soon as we can. But please bear with us, this is going to take some time in some specialties.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Angie, for explaining that as fully as you have. I don't know how you'll feel about this next question. I suspect it's from one of our nursing colleagues. And you'll know that when we take nurses in off the bank or through agency, there are often incentive payments. But we've been working really flexibly over the last year, having to redeploy people from the normal areas of work to different areas of work. So this question is, might a similar sort of incentive payment be considered in those sort of circumstances? Not least, I suppose, because people can find it quite hard having to get used to kind of new colleagues and new regime and ways of working.
And we try our utmost not to move our staff from their regular permanent base for the reasons that you've outlined, Helen. And it is really stressful to be coming into a shift and then find that you've been asked to work elsewhere. But again, just to reiterate our thanks for everyone who's done that under such exceptional circumstances, particularly this last year. We are recruiting a number and have recruited a number of staff who will be joining us, particularly nursing and midwifery staff, over the next weeks. So over 100 from now through to Christmas who will be in our organisation, which will reduce that risk of permanent staff being moved. And the NHSP bank is available to all our own staff, so they can join that and get that incentive scheme through that way.
Very good. I'm going to stick with the staff theme, if I may. They're coming thick and fast.
Yeah, I can see them.
Now, I hope the request for an incentive payment isn't going to give rise to a concern or a grievance, but we have got a question about how does the Trust communicate and address the concerns of staff who have a concern or a grievance? And I know we've got great policies and procedures in place around all that, but it sounds like we might have a concerned colleague. So a bit of an outline of how that works and what they can do will be helpful.
Yeah. And my message to all our staff, first and foremost, is where you can talk to your immediate line manager around your concerns, and we will do everything to support them and you to address them. I also recognise that not everyone feels comfortable raising their concerns with their immediate line manager. So there are various avenues, whether you want to contact a HR manager that every area has the support from, whether you want to use our Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, or if you're a junior doctor, they have their own guardian. So Abby and Pauline are available for anyone to speak to raise their concerns in confidence. We would always encourage people to do that by name. Occasionally we get anonymous ones, and they're quite hard then to make sure we've resolved your concerns. So I know we don't always get it right. There's a lot of happening at the moment, and keeping up with everything and making sure we're supporting everyone as best we can isn't always easy, but please do talk to us and let us know your concerns.
And Abby does a great job in her Freedom to Speak Up role, doesn't she? But she's also supported by a non-executive director, and that is going to be, with Beverly Webster having just stepped down from the board, it's going to be Sue Lou. So, you know, that whole Freedom to Speak Up process has some board involvement and oversight. So it's a good it's a good extra mechanism, isn't it, if, as you say, things are proving difficult in your immediate environment. Yeah. Now, we've got ones that kind of touch a few areas. So one of them kind of says, but more eloquently, we're going to have a shiny new A&E, but will we have enough staff to run it and for us to get the most out of it?
And part of the case for that new A&E has looked at the staffing requirements. And regardless of that, there is ongoing discussions around making sure we have got the right staff to deliver the services that we need. We know that we're seeing increasing numbers of patients coming through A&E. That unprecedented word I used earlier, we've seen those numbers completely go off the scale at certain times over recent weeks and months. So we need to continually review staffing levels and staffing skill and band to make sure that we are getting the right people to care for the numbers of patients coming through.
Very good. Now, no annual members meeting will be complete without a series of questions about car parking. So get ready. The first one is about what's going to be the impact on car parking, because the new A&E is going to be in what was the small car park opposite the old A&E. So what's the implication of that? So that's probably the slightly easier one. There's another series of questions, Angie, and they're all about, through the pandemic, there's been free parking for staff and for visitors. And not surprisingly, people want to know if there's been any decisions about what's going to happen, if and as we get into a more normal phase of working.
Brilliant. I love a car parking question, and I love the opportunity to plug what one of my colleagues referred to recently as the Angie Smithson car park. So the re-provision of the spaces lost for the new A&E have been provided with the car park that is opposite the co-op. So that has 150 spaces. I regularly count when I leave there, as I did today, or arrive, and very few days do we get above 20 people parking there. So just a reminder and a plug, it's not that much further than walking from the top of car park 10, but there is enough spaces, and we regularly, again, keep under review flow of traffic around the site, and at the moment we're managing with those spaces and what we need. Very timely as well with asking the question around charges. Secretary of State indicated last week that he wasn't going to change the national message around not having car parking charges for staff. That was something that was started at the beginning of the pandemic. Some trusts have stepped back from that, but we as a board have chosen not to. And we've also as a board chosen to tie that with visitor and patient parking. So again, at the moment, there is still no charging and not likely to change that for the rest of this financial year, and discussion to be had again at board.
Thereafter. Yeah, so you can spend your car parking money until the end of the year quite
Indeed.
safely. Very good. Now, a number of other questions. I think I'd like to take the ones about the green agenda next. Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of broad question about what's the Trust's approach towards becoming net zero carbon, because we need to do that on the kind of national NHS targets by 2040. And a specific, really excellent one about these face masks we're all using, single-use face masks. And, is that going to give us a bit more of a challenge in terms of our wider green agenda?
So commitment as a trust and as a system, I think, importantly, to the green agenda and the national objectives for the NHS, and teams and people, as I referenced earlier, working on that, and helpfully now more information available about what our baseline is and how we're working towards it, because some of those measures have been difficult to understand. So lots of work happening that helps us measure our progress towards that objective, as well as actually doing the do. And the reason I reference not only as a trust, but as a system and nationally, is something like the face masks. We are guided by national guidance and what that means. But where we have ideas or questions like that, the power of doing that through a system or a number of organisations, I think is really important, that we put those questions back. I don't have the answer, but that's certainly one we can flag through, can't we, and say, given the number of masks that we're getting through every day. I'm sure, I hope, someone centrally is considering that, but we'll do a double check.
Very good. Now, we're both guilty of saying DSFS many times this evening, and somebody wants to know what it means. So it's Derbyshire Support and Facility Services. So thank you for pulling us up on our use of acronyms. The next question, Angie, is have other trusts adopted the And I Look Like This badges?
Yes, they have. David's done a fabulous job, as you heard him talk, promoting it. And all of us that have been in contact with colleagues in other trusts have done the same. And social media, very powerful, and traditional media at making sure that they do adopt it. I'd have to ask David if he knows how many now, but certainly seeing the number of tweets and messages that come back, then others have adopted it. And we got the support from Catherine Granger's husband, her being the one who championed the "Hello, my name is" that David linked in, which I thought was an excellent way of linking that support for patients and that communication. So having all that support, and as you heard, most of the royal family supporting us, then that adoption is starting to spread.
That's super. And probably last couple of questions now, really. One about the flu vaccine. Are you expecting the flu vaccine uptake to be higher this year? And if I can add a little supplementary on that for all of us who are over 50, are there plans in terms of the booster, COVID-19 booster vaccine rollout for the over 50s in train yet?
Yep, so in terms of flu, we've got off to a flying start this week, and talking to colleagues, then certainly the level of commitment to achieve more than the last year's target is there. And I think the experience we've all had, I suspect people will want their flu vaccine. I noticed a myth-busting message out today that please get it as soon as you want to. It does last longer than the 12 weeks. So some people were hanging on thinking I'll get it in October, where we've reiterated the message that get it as soon as you can. It will protect you for the flu season. So yes, and being the competitive people that we are, then we are aiming for above 85%. In terms of the COVID booster, that will be rolled out and plans are in train now the way that we did the original rollout. So all hospital staff, the over 50s through primary care, as you heard Peter talking, and at the same time obviously the 12 to 15 vaccination rollout as well. So lots of discussion, lots of plans in place, and watch this space in terms of dates and times.
Very good. Well, the next question we have, Angie, is probably a great segue to us having a conversation with Margaret. So I might spare you that one. And we'll draw a line under the questions there. I just want to say thank you for all of the questions. And I don't know if you're aware, but our Council of Governor meetings are open to the public. And we have a section on each of them where we take questions or any comments or views from members of the public. So if you've, if we've whetted your appetite tonight in terms of being able to hear directly from us and respond to your questions and queries, please do bear that in mind as another way to raise issues. But if we draw a line on the questions there, and we'll have a chat with Margaret next. Angie and I have accounted to you, the membership, for the performance of the Trust over the past 12 months. But for me as the Chair and for my colleague non-executive directors on the board of the Trust, we in turn are held to account by the Council of Governors, acting as a body. And that body elects from its own ranks a lead governor. And this year, Margaret Rochelle was elected to take over from Denise Veremchuk as lead governor. So firstly, let me say a big thank you to Denise for 9 years of distinguished service, and a very warm welcome to Margaret this evening, and thank you for joining us. Margaret, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm conscious that this is a really nice opportunity for people to put a face and name together, and what inspired you to take on the role of governor and why you were willing to take the challenge of stepping up into the lead governor role.
Thank you, Helen, and good evening to everyone watching. A little bit about myself. I wasn't born in Chesterfield, but I have lived in the town for the last 40 years. My professional background was in the NHS, and I worked for almost 40 years as a hospital pharmacist in various hospitals around the country. I retired from that role some years ago and felt that I still had a little bit left that I could give to the NHS. And so I decided to put myself forward for election as a public governor. And obviously I did that at Chesterfield Royal because I've got a very much of a vested interest in that being my local hospital. I was very fortunate and very honoured to be elected at the first time of asking, if you like. And this is my 8th year as a governor, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the role and found it both interesting, inspiring and satisfying, and I've met some absolutely wonderful people, both fellow governors, staff around the hospital, and just so many wonderful people. And in terms of the lead governor role, Denise obviously reached the end of her term of office, and having watched her in the role, I was inspired. She was a real leader, and she really brought the Council of Governors forward, and I wanted to continue that, and I was lucky enough again to have the support of my colleagues to take that role over.
Well, we've been inspired by the way you've picked up the baton, Margaret, so thank you for that. Now, the last question that came in was, I think, perfect for you, because it was asking about, are there any other major challenges faced by the Trust in the coming year? And I know that one of the things that the Council of Governors at Chesterfield does really well, and indeed is held up as an example of best practice in other trusts, is the way that you have and set out for the non-executive directors a series of kind of success measures. You put us on notice of the things that you're going to hold our feet to the fire on. And that's a good thing, because what gets measured gets managed, and it's a real way, I think, of governors having a very strong and appropriate influence over the priorities of the Trust. So Margaret and her colleagues have done a bit of work looking at the 5 themes that Angie took you through tonight of our new strategy, and they have put us on notice of what's going to be particularly important to them. So Margaret and I thought we might just go through them again, not at such length as we did the first time, but just to give you a flavour of what it is the Council of Governors are going to be particularly interested in monitoring progress on over the coming 12 months. So I hope that's going to be a really good answer to the question about challenges for the coming year. So the first theme in the strategy, Margaret, is about exceptional patient care. So you've kind of considered the whole wide range of things we're doing, and you've chosen a specific area of focus. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's already been mentioned in one of the previous questions about anxieties about waiting lists and, and the recovery. So we know that everybody is going to be absolutely concerned about that, but there are other things about care in that, you know, when you come into hospital, you don't want to actually come to any harm. So one of the things we'll be looking at is things like pressure ulcers and falls while you're in hospital and safety. A further thing is about communications. People often comment that, you know, they need, you know, the communication while they're in hospital is not as good as it should be. So all these things are elements of care that we want to keep an eye on. And the way that I think the governors are going to be actually looking at that closely in the coming year is all the inpatient wards at the Royal are working towards some measures of care standards. And those are going to be measurable items. And we feel that if the wards actually are achieving these care standards, that in itself will be an indicator that we are actually doing the right things for our patients. Hopefully, when times permit, the governors will be again able to come and visit the wards and actually see how things are going. But in the meantime, at least we have some other measures about how the Trust is performing.
And 90% of them you want to see with the bronze accreditation by the end of this year, which links in with that ambition in our strategy. So we feel sure that that's going to prompt a lot of good conversations and hopefully a lot of support to our frontline colleagues in terms of, you know, putting in place the things they need to put in place. So the second theme of our strategy, you may or may not recall, is about looking after our people. So tell us a little bit, Margaret, about Governor's thoughts in terms of priorities in that area.
Yeah, I can't count the number of times it's been said that good patient care can't be delivered unless the staff are actually looked after as well. We need good staff to look after patients. And it's something that governors have been concerned about for as long as I've been a governor, is how staff are feeling and how they're well cared for. And we've looked at things like the annual staff survey and the results of that, how many staff are getting regular appraisals and the quality of those appraisals, and are we actually keeping our staff? Because really the aim is that, you know, we want Chesterfield to be somewhere that people love to come to work and actually want to stay working with. So we'll be monitoring, you know, how we're retaining the staff that we actually do have, as well as you know, looking after them. And another point is just their own well-being, not just how they're performing, but how people feel in terms of their own well-being. So those are things that we'll be looking out for. And again, there are some measures there in terms of the staff survey, but also just you know, what feedback we're getting from staff about how they feel.
Thank you, Margaret. That's super. The next one is about support for our communities, which is quite a wide one, isn't it? But tell us where in particular you think governors are going to be focused.
It is. I mean, this is really, you know, about us working with our colleagues in the wider healthcare system. And so, you know, we need to be looking at, you know, how we can support other services in health prevention, as well as actually looking after people while they're, when they are unwell. So it is quite a more difficult one, if you like, to quantify. But we're really looking to see how the Royal Hospital actually develops its role within the wider system and becomes what's being termed an anchor organisation within the wider healthcare system, and working at place. Again, is another term that's being used if you've looked at the integrated care system. So it's very much a lot of changes happening, and no one's really quite certain how this is going to develop. But it is something that the governors will be watching closely as to how we find our slot as the right place, in our right place within the organisation.
I have to admit that when I go to meetings of the system where the other providers across Derbyshire come together, we do occasionally suck our teeth about, you know, how are our governors going to take to these changes, and the focus is not just on organisations but about putting the patient at the centre and, you know, working right across organisational boundaries, and, you know, how will we work to get them along. And I always say, well, actually, there's no work to be done in Chesterfield Royal in that front. Our governors are impatient for us to just put our patients first and not be considering the kind of organisational or institutional issues. And I have to say, Margaret, under your leadership and under Denise's leadership, that focus on patient-centred care that transcends boundaries has been really does you all great credit. And it's lovely to know that, that Angie and I then have the confidence to go into the system and play our full part, knowing that we've got the Council of Governors support in that way. So that's super. The next one is about value from all our resources. So thoughts on that?
Yes, well, we all want value for money, don't we? And the money that we have is, public money that comes from you, the taxpayers, and us, the taxpayers. So we have to make sure that we manage it correctly. And again, in part, some of this is around working as a system and breaking down some of the barriers between different types of services, between primary care and GP services and secondary care services like the hospital, reducing perhaps some of the duplications that go on so that we are actually working as efficiently as possible. I know that the Royal has set out 5 sort of key areas where it's looking at the way that those services are delivered to get the best value for money so that we're not wasting our resources. And we should be monitoring that quite closely to see that how things are progressing on that.
Thanks, Margaret. And last, but by no means least, we've seen a range of innovations in the Trust. As my mother always said, necessity is the mother of invention. And in response to COVID, we've really accelerated some innovations and changes. But that's the last theme in our new strategy about bringing improvement to life. Yeah. So a bit about that, if you would.
Yes, I mean, in some ways, to me, this is the most important of all, really, because it's all very well talking about different ways of working and improvements, but unless we can actually make those happen and make them real and make sure that they are actually a benefit to patients, then we might as well not bother. So this is, again, looking at different ways of working, enabling staff to have good ideas and bring them to life. And I think that's where the Royal, it's been mentioned earlier this evening, the Royal Academy of Improvement has helped, because not very many years ago, staff could have a good idea about how a service could be improved, but it was very bureaucratic to actually make those changes happen. And that I think at the Royal has been transformed in recent years, in that staff can now come forward and say, actually, we could do this a different way and it would be rather better. And they can now take those ideas and run with them, develop them, have support to develop them. So yes, we'll certainly be monitoring projects that are going through the Royal Academy of Improvement and making sure that those actually do come to fruition.